Hi guys, so as promised, part 2 is coming up. I have spent the last couple of hours going through the 600 and something reports I had remaining. I have got it down to 337, so there is still over 300 reports that I haven't had the opportunity to read and to decide whether they should make it into a video. I will be doing a part 3. It probably won't be tonight. If I can, if the Heavenly Father gives me the strength, I will. But otherwise it will be after I've rested, which would most likely be 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, and then I'll be back at it again. Rosh Hashanah started on September the 9th at sundown and ends on Tuesday, September the 11th. Today is September the 11th at 18 minutes past 12 over here in the UK. And today is the day of their opening ceremony, their opening ritual. So that is going to be linked into the Feast of Trumpets, because Rosh Hashanah is the Feast of Trumpets, so both of those things occurring at the same time. Just before I move on, I find it interesting as well. The Day of Atonement is on the 19th, and then the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd follow shortly after that, with a kind of like a 1-day gap in between. 21st is my birthday, International Peace Day. 22nd may be taken from Obama's forehead, and the 23rd may be taken from Psalms 23. There's a few translations for that, but up to September the 23rd is what I'm looking at. Today, they are going to be doing the Tower of Voices memorial. Donald Trump will be attending. It's in Pennsylvania. This is the memorial dedicated to the 40 people that died on 9/11 in Flight 93. Obviously, 93 is 999 or 666 upside down. So we have a clear reference to something satanic taking place. So on Rosh Hashanah, we have the Tower of Voices, as well as, sorry, I've missed one thing out, I think. No, so what I wanted to say was that today is the opening ceremony. I don't expect anything too massive to take place, more like what they're doing, the memorials and stuff like that. In association with that, I think Google's also getting in on the action by doing this. It's the curtains opening. Basically, their show is about to begin. There is more information that I am suspicious of within this image. Main thing that makes me think that is the owl here on the tree, and the owl is often referenced in these images when there's something to learn from them. The owl obviously representing knowledge or wisdom. So I'll be studying this Google Doodle, and it may make it into part 3. We'll see. But having said 9/11 today would be their opening ceremony, their opening ritual. Tomorrow, the 12th, is the next stage, the blood sacrifice. And I do believe that's going to be connected to Hawaii. There's 2 translations, either the 12th or the 21st, depending on how you view the 2 seeds and the 1 seed inside the apple in the iPad Goat video. But considering we've got Hurricane Olivia crossing through the Big Island and the Hawaiian chain of islands tomorrow, and we just have this whole 9/11 thing going on, it makes sense that they would do an opening ceremony and then a blood sacrifice. It's been pointed out already, but I'll just clarify it for those of you who don't know, that this island is shaped like a goat's head. This wasn't discovered by me. I can't remember the YouTuber that pointed it out. I'm sure you guys will put it in the comments for me and others to look at later. But you can see, you've got the ear up here, you come down, you've got the forehead, you've got where the eyes would be, the nose, the mouth, and obviously this comes round. They're missing the body, but you've got the neck and you've got the back of the head. The neck is where we're interested, because obviously when sacrificing an animal, it's often the goat's neck or the sheep's neck that's slit in order to drain out the blood from that animal. And it's also one of the more humane, quickest ways of doing the deed. But we know that Kilauea volcano is situated in this area. We know that Helena slump is unstable. We know that Fissure 8 is showing signs of activity again. And from the translations, it would be Fissure 8 where this massive eruption takes place. And that would, I don't know, somehow propagate throughout the fissures and cause the Helena slump to break away. That would obviously generate an earthquake. So much geological activity would not create an earthquake. And it would also create a tsunami landslide. Tsunamis have been studied quite frequently. One of the more well-known ones is, I've just forgotten the name of it, is a reference back to Kilauea Bay, I think it's called. Don't quote me on that. Search it on Google, the highest tsunami wave recorded, and that was over 1,000 feet, I believe. In this instance, we're looking at tsunamis around the height of, say, Big Ben, for example, clock tower height. So quite large. Obviously, in the open ocean, it most likely won't be that height, but as it nears the coast and raises up, that's when you'll see this wall of water approaching. Now, obviously, tomorrow could come and none of this could happen, in which case the translation or the interpretation is wrong. So just bear that in mind. Going on to what's happening in the news, Turkey, Russia, Iran are using local currencies now. So basically, they've booted the dollar. The three countries agreed the United States dollar should not be used for trade. He added that transactions will be made over designated currency exchange rates. So the dollar is already looking like people are switching from it, and that is going to cause the dollar to lose value, which is, if you really know about the dollar, then you know that money doesn't really have any value. It's all inflation, and really the only thing that has value is the material things like gold and silver, for which ordinary people like you and myself really can't get our hands on that easily. Oil pullbacks on concerns US inventories are building. So oil prices were mixed on Monday, pulling back from an early rally after data suggested US crude inventories might build, weighing on the market. So traders said weekly data from Bloomberg suggested US oil inventories are rising, contradicting an earlier report from energy information provider Grenscape, which forecast decline in inventories. This has been a Monday morning special. Okay, forget that part. Well, basically, what it seems like the US is doing is stocking up their piles of oil while demanding that all the other countries stop buying oil from Iran, and that deadline is in November, which is why November is also a big watch time for similar events like these events around Iran and the Straits of Hormuz and blocking it. Obviously, it could come much earlier in terms of this month. We've got so much going on this month, it wouldn't surprise me. But bear in mind that it could be later on when we've got the midterms and Halloween and fireworks night and all sorts of other things going on. Iran completes facility to build centrifuges. So while we've got, the oil and everything being attacked, and we've got Russia, Iran, and Turkey switching from using a dollar for trade and using their own local currencies, Iran's just completed a facility to build advanced centrifuges, which we know Israel's not going to be happy about. The United States is not going to be happy about, but it's all part of the plan, because if they don't do that, then how are you going to start a war? What are you going to use as an excuse? So all of these world leaders, they're in on the game. They just play their part. They're part of the show, and the audience sits there and laps it up, not really kind of looking into the true roles of the characters and how they may intermingle with each other and actually support each other rather than being against each other. So having that happen while everything else is happening, especially over in Syria, is quite important. As I said, I think Iran's already got nuclear weapons, and all of this is just a farce. US Navy conducts military exercises in the Gulf amid Iran tensions. So obviously, we know that the Straits of Hormuz, Iran threatened to block it. They brought out their Navy and did a military exercise there at the beginning of September. So now the US is conducting its own Navy exercise, obviously to respond if Iran does block the Straits of Hormuz. Translation from the iPad Goat video is they are going to block the Straits of Hormuz. And when the US Navy comes to stop them, they're going to use a tsunami to decimate the US Navy, which brings in kind of like the Air Force, really. Israeli Air Force, US Air Force. We'll see how that unfolds, if it does unfold in real time or in the real world. But at the moment, the practice of blocking the straits and the practice of going to defend the straits is real, and the scenario for that happening, or the potential, sorry, for that happening, is also real. So something more to keep our eyes on. Just so many things to keep our eyes on. Yeah. Russia is warning the US it's prepared to attack key bases in Syria. Now, this is a kind of an old report. It's from September the 7th. I already reported on this, but I brought it up to add it to the the timeline or to the actual flow of the video, because you've got Russia warned the US is prepared to attack a key base in Syria, which it actually is in the process of starting to do. Bombings have already started, but the bigger offensive is due to take place, in my opinion, about 4 days' time. So in response to that, the US sent troops to Syria, the base where Russia would be in the area kind of attacking, so they wouldn't be attacking the United States directly, but the US forces are in that area where they would be launching attacks and there could possibly be casualties. Obviously, the United States is warning Russia not to do that, but Russia doesn't seem to be listening, so the US is sending troops to Syria, obviously as reinforcement. Not many troops, 100 troops have been sent, 100 Marines. Obviously, each Marine is valuable on their own, but when you're looking at a large-scale army coming towards you like Syria or Russia, you might need a few more Marines there if you truly want to actually mount a proper defensive. But obviously you've got the potential for the United States to back them up using Tomahawk cruise missiles, the UK, France, and now we're here in Germany as well. So a lot to look out for there. They're all building up their armies over there, so it's important that we keep a watch. Turkey and Iran and Russia already reported on this as well. Just before Russia and Syria started launching strikes in the northeastern part of Syria. I believe it's northeastern. There's conflicting reports, but it's Idlib. So wherever that is, northeastern, northwest, southwest, it's Idlib. So that's where they're trying to agree to ceasefire, but that failed. I reported on that already. And because of that, Turkey is warning Russia that an attack on Idlib will turn into a lake of blood, which brings me back to the chemical attack that's going on, or that they're saying could potentially happen. We've got reports of white phosphorus being used over there, barrel bombs being used. So this is definitely a war where they're seeming to bring out all the illegal weaponry. So the likelihood of a chemical attack taking place that leads to a bigger conflict is very high. At the same time as Turkey is warning Russia not to attack and that it will turn into a bloodbath, they are sending a military convoy into Syria with tanks and rockets, launchers and commandos. Obviously, Turkey is a NATO ally, but considering the conflicts between Turkey and the US and how Turkey has been kind of pushed towards Iran and Russia in terms of alliance, it could be possible that this convoy is heading into Syria to, back up the Assad or Putin regime, especially if things turn ugly and betrayals are made and things like that. So much. Now, with all the reports of Russia saying that Britain is preparing a chemical attack, we actually have a US senator claiming that Britain's MI6 is planning a fake chemical weapons attack on Syria. He says, "I'm just an individual who is deeply concerned about achieving peace and stopping the slaughter in the Middle East." This is, what's his name? Where is it? Richard Black, Senator Richard Black. Fresh off a sit-down with Syrian President Bashar Assad, Virginia State Senator Richard Black turned up on Arab TV last week, making an extraordinary claim about one of the US's closest allies. Mr. Black said Britain's MI6 intelligence service was planning a chemical weapons attack on the Syrian people, which it would then blame on Mr. Assad and Russia. Obviously, that's where the 10,000 kind of comes in, I think. The 10,000 ID dead. And if that's the case, well, that's definitely going to cause a massive conflict, something we really need to keep an eye on. The fact that this whole false chemical weapons news has been floating around for a while makes it seem more likely that it's going to be used because there's too much confusion around it. So if it is used, the blame game is going to be played pretty quickly. But obviously, us as the public, we're not going to get a say in how our countries respond. They're just going to respond because, again, it's all part of the show. So, keeping all that in mind, the Trump administration, as I reported in the last video, but I didn't bring up the report and I struggled with the naming of the actual place. So, Trump administration announces closure of Washington PLO office. That's the Palestinian office. The United States announced the closure of the Palestinian mission in Washington, D.C., in what Palestinian leaders described as a declaration of war on peace efforts by the administration of President Donald Trump. So for those of you who think that Donald Trump is going to bring about peace in the Middle East, it looks more unlikely every day. When you look at the fact that he withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal, when you look at the fact that he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, some people would argue that he's supporting Jerusalem, he's supporting Israel, he's doing things that Israel wants him to do. You know, move the embassy, recognize Israel as, you know, recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel instead of Tel Aviv. But if you look at it another way, all of those things put Israel in way more danger than they were in before. Having Iran basically free to pursue nuclear weapons, because they're basically saying that the EU can't save the deal. They've opened a new centrifuge, as just reported earlier in this video, and you know, they've told their the atomic agency in Iran, something along those lines, to prepare for above 15 or 25% uranium enrichment. They're ready to go, and all of that is only possible because Donald Trump withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal, and now you've got the Palestinian office that's closed, you've got the Jerusalem, the embassy there. All of it is putting Israel in more danger, not less. So for those of you who, I get it, why you think he's helping, but look at it realistically. Is it making Israel more safe? No. It may be doing the things biblically that are to happen, maybe doing the things that Israel wants to happen, but in reality, it's not making them any more safe than they were before. In fact, putting them in even more danger. Siding with, basically, the way the Palestinians see it is the United States is siding with Israel. And from the reports I've read earlier, basically the Palestinians are saying that they will not be a part of any peace deal that involves America, which is why the United States has closed the PLO office in Washington, putting even more pressure on the whole situation. Then we move on to North Korea. So I basically covered the Middle East there: Turkey, Syria, Iran, a bit of Russia in there as well. But North Korea, they are resuming talks on recovery of war dead remains. So they already returned some, I think it was 52. They took it to Hawaii, and I believe those, I'm not sure what happened after Hawaii. Maybe they got returned to their families, or I'm not exactly sure what happened. I'll probably have to search and find out. But I find it interesting that you've got the talks of recovery of dead remains, the talks on recovery of war dead remains starting up again, and you have North Korea and South Korea asking the UN to circulate a peace declaration. North Korea and South Korea asked the United Nations on Friday to circulate a peace declaration their leaders agreed to in April that vows to remove nuclear weapons from the Korean Peninsula and work toward a formal end to the Korean War. Can we say peace with the peace flag? And what about the jagged rocks that look like rib cages or remains? It's possible that that's a dual message. Peace talks, war dead remains, and then to me looks like the 14th or the 15th. By then things have gone wrong. Right now we're on the 11th. The 12th I think is going to be a really mile marker day, because if things don't happen, then it's unlikely that the other events I've talked about are going to happen in that time frame. But if something does happen around Kilauea tomorrow, in terms of a blood sacrifice after the 9/11 opening ceremony ritual, then it's more likely that 3 days after that we'll see the events on the 15th as well, not to mention the events on the 14th on the East Coast, and everything that we've talked about. So that's the end of the video. I think I've covered everything I wanted to put in there. Just the information, just a quick rehash. Rosh Hashanah ending at sundown, September the 11th. At the same time, we've got the Tower of Voices going on. It's also the Feast of Trumpets, which is Rosh Hashanah, so just bear that in mind, they're not completely two separate things. The memorial, the Tower of Voices. We've got the potential for the blood sacrifice the next day, slitting the goat's throat, the Helena slump, fissure number 8, the Kilauea volcano. It looks like it is their opening ceremony, or the curtains have opened. Basically, it's the start. This is what they're marking. It's the start. 9/11, 2018 is their symbolic marker for the beginning of, I won't say the beginning of the end, because the end is not yet. It's the beginning of the tribulation. That's a more accurate way of describing it. And you've got everything going on with Turkey and Iran and Russia in Syria, and then you've got North Korea. This whole recovery of the war dead remains and the circulation of a peace declaration definitely seems to point to this scene in the video, which I believe is pointing to the 15th of September. You guys, there will be a part 3. I'm not sure exactly what information is going to be in it because I haven't read the reports yet, but I will try and study the Google Doodle a little bit more to find out if there's any information aside from the main message, which is the show is beginning or the curtains have now opened. If there's anything hidden within the structures of the people. My eyes keep getting drawn to the background for some reason. The shadowiness here. I don't know if there's anything in there that I may be able to see. The leaves as well, they seem to be calling out to me. But I'll update if there's anything, or you guys update me if you see anything. You know, it's a two-way street. You guys have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.